Welcome to Home Biz Tax Talk. My name is Lysandra Everett. I am the Home Biz Tax Lady, where I help home business owners win the tax game. Home Biz Tax Talk airs Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. And when you tune into my show, you're going to hear about topics that are important to the home business community. Okay. So, at this time of year, between, May to maybe like September, if you don't know, this is IRS letter season. Okay. So when the IRS processes, processes taxes, they process refunds first, and then they deal with people that have tax liabilities second. So the letters start coming, generally starting late May through September is when all those letters start coming. And then you have people that file the extension. So yeah, it goes on and on and on. Hey, Mike, haven't seen you in forever, dude. Okay. So one of the things that I've been seeing lately, I've been getting emails. I've been getting, I've been having some serious discussion on my YouTube channel, and it's really about the IRS enforcement of laws and people, really believing that the IRS is out to get poor people. So I really wanted to address that because a lot of times we spend our time in anger and we really don't take the time to really understand how things work. And so this is what I really want to talk about. I saw, I forgot which article I read, but it showed like where the most audits take place. And the most audits are in the state of Mississippi. Now, Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the country, if not the poorest states in the country. And it leads people to believe that, the IRS is just out to get poor people. But let me explain how this happens so that you really get how these audits are happening. So lower income people normally get tax credits, right? We get the earned income tax credit, get the American Opportunity Credit, you might get the lifetime learning credit. There are, different tax credits that lower income people get. The earned income tax credit, for instance, when it was created, was called the poverty tax. This was a tax credit that was meant to be temporary to give to low income people, essentially to help keep them out of poverty, to put food on the table. Well, after a while, somebody thought it was cool, and folks voted to keep it, to make it permanent. Now, the thing that you have to understand also about tax law and stuff, Congress is who writes tax law. It's the IRS that enforces it. That's their job. So the IRS does not create the law. Congress creates the law. So the first thing I'll tell you if you're ticked off about your tax law situation, you need to look at who your congressman is, but you also need to take a look at your state and local levels as well. And this is where people start to miss it. See, people, like me, I can talk about federal taxes all day because that's national. Federal law is, across the United States, where state tax law, it varies from state to state. So you have to really be you have to be aware of what's going on in your state and local legislature. Like what kind of things are they voting on that impact your taxes, whether it's, an increase in sales tax, an increase in property tax, an increase in driver's license costs, all those things happen at the state and local level. And so if you don't know how those people are voting, that stuff impacts you too. But we tend to focus nationally because that's what's in the news. And so, I shared with you before that, the IRS has really, it has essentially told the IRS, hey, we need to be enforcing the enforcement of, trying to prevent fraud. Okay. And, because here's the deal, identity theft is real, fraud is real, okay? And once the government loses that money, it's gone. There's no getting it back. So then there's still that loss as well. And so, how is it that we get to, middle and lower income people get audited the most? Well, because it's easier. Plain and simple, because then there are more automated processes in place to say, hey, there's something that's not right here. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. We're talking about W-2s. We're talking about 1099s. You've got other agencies that are talking to each other. So when it comes down to things like earned income tax credit. Well, if you've got a kid that's being claimed by one person this year, another person another year, and then another person a third year, you're saying, okay, who does this kid belong to? This is automated matching. This is why you have Social Security numbers to identify you, right? When you're trying to claim false credits, like the American Opportunity Credit, you get a 1098T, right? And so there's computer matching. Okay, there is computer matching that says, okay, so Lysandra claimed the American Opportunity Credit from this university. Let me go see if the university is issuing Lysandra this 1098T, right? So it's all computer matching. That's just what it is. Wealthier people have more intricate stuff. They got investments, they got foreign investments and all that stuff. And it's a lot harder to catch, quite frankly, because it takes more human intervention, where with lower income folks, we can put that in computers now. If you go claim a false business, then the IRS simply just sends you a letter, if something doesn't look right, saying, hey, can you send us some information about XYZ? Well, 9 times out of 10, if you've claimed a false business, you can't do that. So this is why it's easier to catch lower income people. And on the flip side of that, when you get caught, see, wealthier people, they got money to pay attorneys. Middle and low income people, they don't have money to pay attorneys. They don't have money to pay people to represent them to deal with the IRS. So a lot of times you wind up having to do it yourself. And because you don't know the tax law or are afraid to read the tax law or anything like that, then you're stuck, right? So now, so you go back to the beginning. There's this sense of entitlement that because Sue got a tax refund, I should get a tax refund. That's absolutely not true. And so then because of that sense of entitlement, you're going to using, whatever at-home software, and you're just poking in numbers and go, ooh, that makes me get more money back. Not thinking, is this something that I'm actually legally entitled to? And so then when you get caught and you have to pay that money back, then you don't have the money. You don't have someone to represent you to help you deal with the IRS to work things out. Where wealthier people, they do. They have money to hire attorneys to go deal with all that stuff. And this is why I tell you from the beginning, if you're going to prepare your return as if you knew the IRS was going to be knocking at your door tomorrow. If you do that, you won't have an issue. So no, the IRS is not out to get poor people. It's just easier to catch you when you're lying. Because that's all of that, because a lot of that is so automated, because 9 times out of 10, you just have for lack of a better term, you just have a job, which is a W-2. If you have a 1099 over $600, that goes to the IRS. So the IRS knows how much money you're making. And then on the flip side, when people claim false income in order to get the earned income tax credit, y'all, can I tell you that the IRS pulls your credit report? They look at your bank accounts. And so if you're claiming this income and then they don't see the paper trail, guess what? It's easier to catch you. This is why I'm saying, no, it's so nobody's being targeted. It's just easier, because to catch wealthier people in doing their dirt, it takes a lot more human intervention and takes a lot more time. See, the IRS uses all of these things at its disposal. It uses your credit report. It uses your social media. It uses all of these things. You just like, how on Twitter, when somebody's like, let's go make somebody famous, and somebody on Twitter manages to find out where someone else works and all that stuff. What do you think the IRS is doing? If they're going to build a case against you, they're going to use all of these things. It's not just because of what you said. That's not how they work. And so this is why I want to, and I wanted to talk about this because when you spend time in anger, see, now I'm about to get a little, physiological on you, but you really need to understand how your mind, your body, and how all this works, and it impacts your life. See, when you spend so much time, number one, being in anger, and you're looking at all of these headlines, right? You live by headlines. Headlines are nothing but bait. It's bait for you to read the story, but we just stop at the headlines. So, when it came down to the tax law, all you heard was tax cut, tax cut, tax cut, tax cut. Everybody was, woo, hallelujah, tax cut. But you didn't read the fine print. And so in that fine print, people lost a lot and weren't prepared for it. So you spend all this time in anger. Anger puts your body in a state of stress. You guys have heard the fight or flight, right? Okay. So when you stay in that state of anger, all the blood that's up here in your thinking and reasoning part of your brain, this is where your decisions are made up here, your frontal cortex. The blood leaves here and it goes to your large muscle groups. This is where you feel tension in your shoulders, in your arms, your legs. Your body thinks somebody is about to kill you. That's what the fight or flight is. And when you stay in that constant state, you're not thinking. You're living your life in fear. And all the thinking and reasoning goes out the window. So you don't take the time to take emotion out and really read and study what's going on. You don't read the things that apply to you, for your taxes. You don't read those things. And we have to get back to the point in our lives where we learned things from books and articles and magazines, and not just headlines on, Facebook memes and Twitter posts and all of this stuff. Because that is what keeps you in a state of ignorance. Ignorance is not knowing. But you have these other things that impact your decisions that really don't help you make the right decision for you. And so when people get in trouble with businesses, because we're such in that DIY kind of thing, well, I don't want to pay you, so I'll do it myself. Well, when you do it yourself and then you get in trouble, it's going to cost you more later on. And then you're going to be like, then I hear the statement or question, why didn't somebody tell me? Who knew what you were doing? Right? Like, people will give you just enough rope to hang yourself. When you go and you do these things in business, like I heard I was talking to this guy. He was like, hey, I have this S Corp. Like, why? Why do you have an S Corp? Well, because I heard. Okay, well, now you heard. And so now and you haven't filed taxes properly. So, when you add up the penalties and interest from when the time the tax return was due, whose fault is that? Is it the IRS's fault? No. But it makes us feel better to blame the IRS when we get in tax trouble. It feels better because to take responsibility for our own actions would be hard. To say, I screwed this up. I didn't read. I didn't consult with someone. To take that personal responsibility is hard. And so when you go and I'm not talking about people when you go, to someone who you think is a professional and they screw something up. I'm not talking about that because sometimes you just don't know. But if you don't ask questions, if all you're stuck on is that refund amount, if that's all you're stuck on, yes, that is your fault. Because if you ask questions about what's in your tax return, because it's your job to know. It's not your job just to say, here, you fix it. No, it is your job as a taxpayer to know about your tax return and your tax life. It is your job to know if somebody's claiming something funky on your tax return. It is your job. Because at the end of the day, even if you have a tax professional that screws you over and just, creates some refund that you're not supposed to get, you, the taxpayer, are still ultimately responsible. You have to pay that money back because you're the one who got it. So this is why, I can't stress enough. Like, I really need for us to become smarter, because no, they're not teaching this stuff in school. And, and so ignorance breeds ignorance. And if we go long enough without teaching it so that people can become aware, then no, people just aren't going to know, and the only time that becomes important is when you get the letters from the IRS. And when you get the letters from the IRS, by that time, it's probably too late. Mike asks, how can they look at your bank account without your permission? Banks have laws that they have to abide by too. You have like the bank secrecy law. So if people think that there's something funky going on with your bank account, this is how that like structuring, that kind of thing. So in structuring, just to a brief definition, and I'm sorry, this is going on kind of long, but I really want to, want you to understand this. So structuring is when you put in money deposit money into a bank that's under a threshold, right? And so for the Bank Secrecy Act, if a person deals in cash over $10,000, the bank has to report that. So whether you're depositing over $10,000 or if you're withdrawing over $10,000, if you receive over $10,000 in cash, you are supposed to report that to the IRS. Okay, that's how it's supposed to work. So if the bank reports you and there's something funky, then they're going to investigate. But also, if the IRS thinks there's something funky going on with you, they have to comply. That's just the law. That's why they have these 1099K rules and 1099 miscellaneous rules so that people comply. Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to explain that. So yeah, they pull your bank records, phone records. Yeah. So, but like I said, for me, it's please stop thinking that people or a system is out to get you. Operate within the law. And if they come and ask for whatever documentation, then you can provide said documentation. And then also work on increasing your wealth, right? Work on increasing your wealth. The wealth that you create today might not be for you. You might be the seed planter in your family. But plant the seed so that you can then grow generational wealth. Solomon said, money answers all things. And if you got enough money to hire an attorney to get you out of some stuff, okay, that's the way the world works. Is it fair? Absolutely not. No, it's not fair. It is not fair that if you have more money, that you get treated differently. No, it's not fair. But you know what? That's the way it's been since the beginning of time. So if it ain't changed in all this time, I don't suspect it's going to change anytime soon. So that is my message for today. Sorry, this went on a little bit long, but this was really on my spirit. This was something that was really kind of eating at me. And so I really wanted to address the entire mindset of it all. It's not that somebody's out to get poor people. It's just easier to catch you when you're doing stuff because the automation is in place. It doesn't require human intervention to catch you cheating on your taxes. Plain and simple. And this is why more people are being asked to verify their identities. You know, good people, law-abiding people are getting caught up, you know, as well. There are a lot of people that are upset with tax professionals because the government is requesting, you to verify your identity. It's not the tax professional's fault. It's just the government is trying to catch thieves. That's all. Plain and simple. So that's it for today, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this. Again, I know it went on long, but like I said, it was something that was on my spirit, and I really wanted to address the mindset of people. Don't live by the headlines. Go dig deeper. If you read a headline that bothers you, that speaks to you, that just grinds your gears, then dig deeper and read the rest of the story. Find out what's going on, because that's what's important to you. And then if it's important enough to you, find out how your legislators voted for that thing that sticks out to you, and then vote their butts out. This is why voting matters. Okay? It's not just voting for the president. It's voting for your Congress. It's voting for, your state and local officials. It's voting for that judge. It's voting for that council member. It's voting for all of these people. So if you're ticked off and you feel like somebody's out to get you, go find out who it is. Go find out who that is and then vote their butts out. That's what you do. Okay, so thank you guys so much. You have a fantastic day. And again, we air Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish, and you can come right here and get your questions answered about your home business taxes. All right, have a great day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.